Hey everybody, and welcome to Command Value 1. This is episode 8, and we're talking about the Cleveland Clash. Don, Jordan, and I are being joined by Josh and Patrik. So first off, guys, let me say thank you for making room in the schedule to get together on such short notice and jump on top of this while it's all still fresh in our brains. The big thing with the Cleveland Clash, Josh was doing a bombardment tournament. This is, correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, this is your test run for Adepticon, yes?
It is my test run, and a lot of people seem to actually enjoy the difference.
I had a good time. The big thing also that got introduced here is some experimental errata, correct, Donald?
Yes. So we're officially calling it experimental errata in development. So it's we still have to go through the graces of Dave and stuff like that, but pretty much I think most of what we're going to talk about, at least the core stuff anyways, other than a few tweaks, will probably end up being what's going to be out there at the player sometime, hopefully within the next couple months.
And probably the best way to address all this is jump pretty quickly into the game recap, since we all had the opportunity to play. This is literally half of the people that played at the tournament, including the first place winner, Patrik.
Yes.
There may be some video evidence of you getting booed when you received first place.
There might be some.
Josh did get a battle report recorded. Was that your first game, Patrik, on top table?
Yes, it was.
And I cut together the 3 games I played. Those are both up on the YouTube channels. I've already posted mine into the Command Value 1 group, so feel free to check that out there. But the big reason we're here, I think, is to talk about the beta errata. So, Josh, let's get started with you. Talk to me. You weren't expecting to play, but you got to play. So, how were your thoughts overall on the tournament, the changes that you were looking to make leading into Adepticon, and how the errata impacted all that?
Okay. Well, for a while now, I just talking about the meta and what we can do about making drop spam just, not the name of the game. There was the talk of bombardment, and could we do something to make bombardment viable and fun? So the mission pack that was put together had basically 2 missions that you could score as standard drop, and then 2 missions you could score as bombardment. Now, 2 and 2 makes 4, but there was only 3 missions. The second mission had a raise variable, an alternative scoring, and I think that mechanic works. We might just need to adjust the type of maps that it gets applied to. But if the maps are positioned just the right way, you should be able to make it fun and viable for 2 different approaches to the game for scoring.
And also, what I thought was interesting about that was not only does it change your personal scoring, but it also drastically changes the way that you deal with your opponent as well. So, like your focus, if you're not doing the raising mission, is that you're going to be trying to eliminate their ships that are going to try and bombard, rather than so much combat you going for the same objectives, which I really liked it. So
the Ganymede has never felt so badass.
Well, it was a really great test. I'm very thankful for everybody coming out. The feedback was great. Just a couple of comments here and there about different things that we could do with some of the missions. So overall, I think the bombardment focus was useful. I took Scourge to the event. I wasn't really planning to play. I was hoping to TO it all day, but we had somebody dropping out because they were sick. I lost every game, but I got to test out some of the new mechanics that the Scourge are bringing to the table. That was fun.
Isn't that the job of the TO, though? Is to lose every game?
Well, I mean, I did try and win, but...
Did you even read the missions?
Come to find out, not recently.
Josh is like me. He just makes them. He doesn't actually read them.
One of the coolest things, though, or I'm doing my game recap right now, torpedoes and Scourge are a beautiful thing. The Corruptor rule applied to Scourge torpedoes, basically letting them bombard something, nuke a sector 30 inches away, is really interesting. That with the I always get their names wrong. The Charybdis, is that how we call them?
The bombardment,
frigates. Yeah, the bombardment frigates. Now doing that from atmosphere. They felt really nice. I thought Scourge have something to do now with the bombardment. Obviously, they're not up there with the UCM or PHR as far as leveling sectors in one go, but there's some interesting things that you can do applying a torpedo 30 inches away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and the interesting thing about allowing bombardment on space stations from high orbit, that was an interesting change of pace as well.
Yep.
And it didn't seem to make the space stations get destroyed that much quicker. Like,
apparently, you didn't face a Remus.
All right. My UCM bombardment ships didn't seem that much more effective against it than, say, my Kievs. So to me, it didn't seem broken. Like, oh, I get all these massive bombardment shops against the space station now. It's going to be way too easy to blow them up.
No, but it comes down to like even the mission type too. I mean, like even though the opportunity is there, is it really something you need to focus on?
Mm-hmm.
It gives your bombardment ships something to do in a mission like Station Assault.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it makes it so that in an all-comers list for a tournament setting, you actually can bring bombardment without feeling that you have 200-300 points of ships dedicated to something that you don't use in a mission.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that has always made it difficult before, especially, what was it, Adepticon 2 years ago. I did a heavy station list of missions, and so like there was almost no bombardment to be seen, really, because people knew that ship was useless for a tournament more or less like that. So, but now
and also remember that bombarding a station cause collateral damage as well, so it's not just about killing the station, because in a tight scenario it might be worth it to bombard a station to remove a couple of tokens before putting it on there.
Yep, yeah, that's good observation too.
Well, I'm going to segue right into a different conversation, Patrik, since you said tokens. One of the changes in the errata was the way ground combat works, and does someone want to jump on that?
Yeah, so basically me and Patrik kind of came up with this idea of it was sort of a play off of what he had, and it goes along with the way that point defense works. So you have each token contributes X amount of dice. So in this case, as it currently stands, each armor token contributes 3. Every infantry token contributes 2. You roll all your dice together. You're looking for 5s or better, similar to point defense. Takes 2 successes to take out an armor and 1 to take out an infantry. So that's a 2-1 roll. You apply the dice as you see fit. It's over real quick.
What does it do, or what does it take to get rid of a point defense or a battery?
No, that's going to be 2 as well. We have to add that part, but I think most people usually just end up killing all the infantry if it's more viable that way, because then it goes away at the end of the turn anyways.
I got to have two games where the ground combat came up. It was quick. It was easy. Took like 30 seconds to explain, and then we moved on. It was wonderful.
I've heard people complain in the past that this is one of the speed bumps in the game, the ground combat kind of slowing the game down. Do we feel like this is a viable fix for that complaint?
Yes, I think so.
Because you guys can both roll dice at the same time, and then you're done. You don't have to worry about anything.
Right, you roll the dice. A little bit. Roll the dice, set the successes aside, figure out what you want to blow up, takes seconds, and then tell your opponent, hey, remove 2 tanks and an army guy, or whatever.
Makes it nice and clean, just like Drop Zone CQB.
Sure.
Yeah.
Scratching my head.
Well, Josh, let's bounce back to you. Was there anything in your games that you want to recap? Was there any, I don't know, anything that stuck out with you in any of the games that you played on Saturday?
In regards to the errata, some of the stuff, or just
In regards to the errata,
moments?
in regards to the changes that you're looking to bring to the game for the Adepticon tournament, in regards of cool moments, yeah, I mean, something that sticks out in your mind from Saturday.
Well, one of the biggest changes that Scourge picked up was all the battleships got a new rule called gravitational manipulation. Mm-hmm. And I have to pull that rule up because it's not in the Scourge section. But basically, you can choose with your battleship to make it count as being in a find debris field at the end of its activation, which will have enemy ships targeting it have a -6 to their scan, and then a +1 to the lock values of all their ships. And this is a bubble around 6 inches from your battleship. That was really effective. It helped deliver some Scourge ships, but I do believe the battleship died in every game that it was on the table. Jordan, you killed it, right? Or it was about to be dead?
I think so. That was a lot of killing ago.
Yeah.
Well, I think the interesting point you just made, though, is that a dragon or a demon was actually on the table.
Yes, I really liked the dragon. It also picked up its burn through guns got a little bit more effective, but my dice were so cold that maybe they were doing like 2 or 4 points of damage. But that was really effective. And then if that wasn't good enough, the battleship's also able to basically extend the thrust of all ships activating within 4 inches of it by an extra 4 inches that turn. But then all those ships will take 1 damage point. I got to use that once against Jordan's Avalon. And the Avalon lived, but we wouldn't have been able to apply damage to it when we, if that wasn't a option. So I thought that was cool.
Awesome. Well, Patrik, you also played Scourge, and you managed to win the tournament with Scourge. What are your thoughts?
So my big takeaway from it was that the battleship felt like it was doing its job now. Now it had the staying power to stay for at least turn 4 or 5 under pressure. It went head-to-head with dreadnoughts, and it managed to not survive the encounters, but it managed to bring down the dreadnoughts with it, more or less. Not saying that it was so overpowerful that it single-handedly did this, but it was there, and such a thorn in the side. And in the end, my battleship actually rammed Jordan's dreadnought for a godly amount of damage, which was a glorious moment.
For the Scourge.
Now I'm really sad you didn't hit record on the laptop.
Yeah, I had to call over some of our friends there to show them how ramming actually is done.
And then he didn't ram very well, if I remember correctly.
It was enough to put you down so you were within bow shot of being killed. So I think it put something like 5 or 6 damage points at least on it.
That's good. Then the Corruptor has changed a bit now. We've simplified it more or less. So the Corruptor rule also not only allows the torpedoes for Scourge to bomb or nuke at full range, unlike the other one that had to be within scan. It also now the Corruptor rule just applies at the end of every turn. There's no rolling for it. It's just if you get a single successful damage point onto the ship, it's corrupted and it takes 1 damage point in the cleanup phase every turn. There's no rolling for it, nothing like that.
It's so much nicer.
Yeah, much cleaner. It's one of these time savers as well, where you take something that before could take 5 minutes out of a game just to count the die and apply those effects to something that's a couple of seconds to remember. Okay, one more damage.
Right.
I corrupted the Remus from Rasmus, and I think in the end I did 4 points of damage through corruption plus 2 points of damage for hitting him with the torpedo. So definitely worth it.
Right, and it also makes them look at that ship differently throughout the rest of their turn as well, because at a certain point, all right, well, if I get down to 2 holes, and I'm taking 1 more at the end of the turn, you start playing it a lot differently,
Yeah, and added to that also you have the options now. First of all, to shoot and corrupt something to give it a little bit of damage, but then you have the nuking with the torpedoes as well at long range, which is unique for Scourge.
Right.
Which also felt like now you had a little bit of choice here when you looked at sectors that I needed to take out, but also had a dreadnought that I could apply corruption on turn 2 to.
So speaking of choice, can we talk about the battle cruisers?
We can talk about anything if you want to, Josh.
Do you want to talk about the basilisk in the room?
So the basilisk went up 10 points.
Yes.
Still is going to be kind of the supreme gunboat in the Scourge fleet.
Yeah,
but
10 points more, I still made it completely viable, and I still take it just because it is what it is.
Yeah. And then you've got the Manticore / Banshee, got a slight point reduction, but picked up load 2 on its torpedo, so it can launch 2 torpedoes over the course of the game, along with the new Corruptor rule. I view that ship as really viable now, and you would never have said that before.
No. And it isn't as much for any of its big potential offensive capabilities. It's more for the utility that you get with the torpedoes and the scanning potential with the cloak, which means that you can active scan, launch torpedoes, active scan, launch torpedo, and then you have probably gotten your points back worth from it, and you can just drum it up the middle of the board and use its close action if it doesn't die.
Yeah, and I can see the battlecruiser fans maybe taking one of those with your basilisk instead of a double basilisk list.
Yeah, depending on the mission types, I think it's might be a choice between those two. But now it's at least a choice. Before this errata, there wasn't a choice.
No.
I think it's very healthy.
Yeah.
Well, Jordan, let's move on to you. You brought your UCM to the game. How'd it go for you?
Oh, I had fun. I beat
Well, that's
Josh.
good. Well, it sounds like everybody beat Josh, so I would take that as a benchmark.
I have boot marks all up my backside.
You had one of the few you were the only UCM dreadnought there, weren't you?
I think so.
Yeah, I didn't bring one.
Well, you did, but
as you well know, there's not a lot of strategy and thought into my list because I wasn't sure I was going to the very last moment. It was a very last minute list.
Yeah, no, I was typing your list up for you on the phone while you were driving to my house. So
That sounds like the excuses of a loser.
Yeah, I had no illusions of performing well at this tournament.
Patrik, the excuses of a loser is I didn't know I could score those clusters. Go on, Jordan. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I got to kill lots of things. I think I outkilled my opponent in all 3 of my games. So if we're going on kill points, at least it was really, really close most of the time. I think Patrik might have had me by a little.
Yeah, really close, but I think I was 100 point up or something like that, but nothing major.
Well,
squeezed out the dread at the end.
Yeah,
I think I was close to 800 or 900 kill points most games.
Thanks for providing that segue. Don, you changed tournament scoring, and we tried that out this game as well. So why don't you talk about that as one of the big changes? And it didn't get added to the errata until last minute, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, pretty much. That was more my fault. I thought I had sent that to Josh earlier. But so the way that the scoring works now is we're going with a simple win, tie, loss static scoring system with kill points switching over from game points to tournament points. And so the way that it works out is, as it currently stands, it's 8 points if you win, 5 points if you tie, 2 points if you lose. And then the spread is actually I didn't bring that up.
I've got it right here, I believe.
Do you have it? I think it's. I think you're getting a 1-3-5.
No. It is
bump.
1-3-5. It's 0 to 300 is nothing. I think
Sounds about right.
Yeah, it might be 0. Yeah.
it was like 3 to 6 was
700.
1. Was it 3 to
Yes.
7, and then 7 to what? 8, 7 to 9. You remember, Patrick?
7 to
7
11.
to 1099.
Yeah, that was 5 points.
So if you're losing, just go for kills.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So if you're going to lose the game, you can definitely focus on doing
Take him down with you.
Right. Exactly. And so this way, there's a chance to come up from the rear and at least start hitting mid pack if it looks like it's not going to be a good tournament for you. So it's nice because before it almost felt like there was no reason to really try if you were really losing the game. But now there's like sort of more or less a secondary chance to really come up from it. Because I didn't think applying the points to the game score was all that effective, to be honest with you.
Well, and I ended up my first round I tied Sean, so I had 5 points, and then my second round I beat you, Don, and then that bumped me up to second table. So I had a draw and a win, and I was right there at the end to not score all my clusters to beat Patrik. But so I thought the new scoring system was interesting. I liked it.
Yeah, I think the spread between the top 4 players wasn't that big, even though we were separated enough that it felt good.
No. You don't have to be kind to everyone else, Patrick. The spread between 2 through 4 wasn't that far.
Patrick, how many points? What were your tournament points at the end of the day?
31, I believe.
Okay, so I had 21.
32.
And I know Jay was at 29, and that's who I played round 3. So yeah, it wasn't even a huge spread. I mean, we're talking about 8 points for a win. Did you lose a game or draw a game, Patrick, or did you win all 3 games?
All 3. And I believe he did as well.
Okay. So it just came down to kill points.
Yeah.
Right, and it feel like I was talking with Josh about it, and like game scores like that, even if you do end up in mid pack or whatever, it makes you feel more like you had a chance,
Mm-hmm.
But when somebody's like 50 points ahead of you, you're like, well, there was no way in hell I was ever gonna catch up to that guy.
Yeah, I can just compare to Origins tournament where I had was it 59 points after the first day with 3 games out of 60. I could have lost all games day 2 and still ended up first.
Still won.
Yeah.
And the nice thing too about that is when we start getting into more of these, like the way I run the GT, and I think that'll sort of start rolling into a lot of the official tournaments if we ever get them going. The 2-day events where it's fleet and zone, fleet 1 day, 1 zone 1 day. So at the end of the first day, if you're going for the overall winner, if you're down, the amount of points you have to make up the next day is less harsh than.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
And it also it means also that you don't get that big lead that you get nowadays before for stomping on someone that's new to the game or not as experienced.
It makes your wins matter, and it still makes every game matter.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't remove kill point swing totally, but it makes you less cruel about it.
Yeah.
And then the bigger games were bigger tournaments, anyways. The other portion of that is that we're going to start pairing up first and second place, and then for like a top table, and then that they will be first and second place depending on how their game turns out.
Regardless of their overall scores. you make
Right,
top
exactly.
table.
Right, yep. And we could even push it into third and fourth, but we haven't really decided. I think that'll be like a TO decision or whatever.
Yeah, I think that actually it's the best way to do it is to look at the top 4 players and look at the spread of points between them. Because it would suck if you have 4 players that are within 2 points or something like that, and those 4 players should be playing in for it. So I think it should be a little bit flexible than just being 1 and 2.
Yeah, or what happens when you got 2 people tied for second place?
You go to game points for a tiebreaker.
Yeah.
And then you go to kill points for a tiebreaker. And then you go to rock, paper, scissors for a tiebreaker.
Oh, well, the tiebreaker is going to be the game points. So if we tie on game points, then...
And then you go to your opponent's kill points, and then you go to your opponent's tournament points.
Well, I currently don't have a place for the kill points on there.
Yeah, we might have to reconsider revamping that scoring chart, but that's not a big deal.
Yeah, there's only so much information you can fit on the sheet, though.
I think if you go game points and kill points, that should be your only 2 tiebreakers, and you'll be fine.
I was kidding
I think
about
so,
having
yeah.
needing 7 tiebreakers going down the line.
I think it should be tournament points, and then game points, and then whiskey level in your blood.
You just want to make sure you win every tournament, don't you?
Exactly. No, but seriously speaking, it's been a couple of events where I have been winning against players that end up winning the tournament because they have been bumped down by facing me to a really easy opponent for the last round, and then they can bunny hop over while I have been
Because you
playing
face a solid opponent.
Yeah. And that's all. It feels a little bit bad when you know that, oh yeah, he won the tournament, but I beat him in our game.
Right, yeah.
I went 3-0, but he went 2-1, and
yeah, exactly.
because he got to curb stomp the noob.
Yeah.
Well, Don, you played UCM as well, and you it looked like your list was solely there just to try out errata.
Pretty much, yeah. I really wanted to push the squadron new squadron rule to its max, not in terms of single ship use, but multi-ship use, like multi-group use, I should say. So the squadron rule is something that is currently applied to UCM ships, but it's going to be a general rule, so you might see it in future ships on other factions as well. So basically what it is, it's kind of the way that we're going to try and bring focus fire into fleet from drop zone. So, but it's a little bit different. So what it is, there's a squadron stat on a particular weapon type with a stat next to it. So let's say it's squadron 2. So you need to have at least 2 ships in the group with the same weapon type shooting at the same ship. If you do that, you get to add D6 more shots to that your pool of dice. And right now it's added to pretty much most of the mass drivers from cruiser level and lower. So Toulons, even all the way down to the Corvettes, the Santiagos, Osaka's getting it, Rios are getting it. So the ships that kind of need a little bit more help to have staying power on the board, or at least firing power.
I think that if you look at it from a fluff perspective, or the perspective that the UCM are weaker and have subpar technology, but working together in a good organization, the sum of the parts become greater than the parts themselves.
Right.
Sort of reflects that.
And you're focusing on so you could also say it's like them focusing on a weak point on the ship.
Yeah.
And so that their firepower in itself feels greater than what it actually is.
Now, so this is a D6 per ship, correct?
It's a D6 total.
Okay.
So when you bring 3 Santiago, Squadron 3, that group of 3, when they launch their attack on a ship, they gain that D6.
Right. You
shots.
need right. So that lets you know how many of that weapon type you need to have shooting
So
the
as an
same
opponent,
ship.
you want to pop at least one of those Santiagos to prevent that squadron from taking effect.
Right, and that's what I was testing more or less. Is I took Santiago's, I took Toulon's, I took Osaka's, and I took Rio's in the minimum pairs they needed to get their squadron rules to go off to see how degraded they quickly fall when they start picking off one ship to lose a squadron effect.
And
so
what were your findings?
I will say that it's definitely going to be a much more effective rule if you at least give an extra buffer ship in there. So have less groups of different ships using the rule and more bolstered groups. So go with some Santiago's, or I should say Toulon's at like group 4 instead of group 3, because they'll have a squadron rule of 3. Just so if you lose one, you're not immediately right back down in the crapper,
So let me throw this question out real quick. Say you've got 2 squads of 3 2 squads of 3 Santiago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you lose one from each squad. Can those squads still form up together and get their squadron 3 bonus, even though they're 2 separate groups?
No, it's got to be the same group.
Okay.
And that's combined. Since you check for the rule when you have assigned shots from a group, so that's when you check for the squadron rule. If at least squadron X, if you have X amount of weapons with this rule firing from this group, then you'd add a D6. As long as they're firing on the same target.
It was pretty good, but it didn't feel overpowered. I think it was just enough to get the mass driver ships into play. So I think pairing them up with some burn through will be good. But they finally actually have a reason to be there. And then the other one I wanted to test out was some of the linked that we're adding to the mass drivers. So the 4200s are those are the crappy ones.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the 4200s for the most ships, or pretty much all the ships I should say, are going to get paired. Because there's such a weak gun in some of the ships, like the Madrid and the
San Francisco.
The San Francisco, right. So it
Seattle.
really didn't make a whole lot of sense to go weapons free to get the spike with those ships to use the other 4200 on there. So it was pretty much never used. And two dice at 4 up isn't getting you a whole lot anywhere. So we felt that to make those ships sustainable, then they really needed to have both of those guns shooting at the same time.
Yep. And one important ship, I don't know, did you bring a Moscow?
I brought a Moscow, yeah.
Yeah, because I played against George first game in a traffic game scenario, and he played a Moscow, and with a point reduction and linked with the guns, it felt more like a workhorse that you can use, which has potential to go weapons free for more firepower, but without weapons free, it still can put out quite a lot of shots in the air or in the space.
And that's good, because I've always thought that was an awesome ship.
Yeah. It feels good, and now it feels like it's in a place where it can be used without people feeling bad about bringing it.
Yeah.
Well, Don, did you have anything else to talk about regarding UCM there?
I didn't really get to do a whole lot of bombard. I only brought one Madrid because it wasn't, even though it was a bombard tournament, it wasn't really my focus. So I was definitely looking for more pressure testing of these rules than I was so much trying to actually win a game. And coming just above Josh was certainly the result of that. So, but yeah, the tournament in general, though, I would say, I think we're going to have some really good variety of missions between what I've done at the GT and what Josh has done here at the Cleveland tournament. I think that we really have some good variety going to with the addition of what we already have in the current book, because the current book I felt was like really heavy drop. Mine was really heavy in multiple ways, I would say. And
it was
also,
very fighter heavy, sort of a slug it out heavy.
Right, and then Josh brought some bombardment into it as well. So I think that there's going to be a pretty good tournament pack coming out of these missions. So
Yeah, I think so too. How many? I don't know if you have talked about that, but there will be a tournament pack this year, right?
yes, so we're looking to have that out and available at least in a beta form by certainly for Adepticon's use. So like early March.
Are we looking at 9, 10 missions or something like that for to?
I'm thinking around 8 would be fine.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Because I mean, there was only 6 or whatever in the first one, so.
Well,
So I think that's about all I have to say about that.
all right. Well, I brought PHR obviously because that's what I bring. And other than some point tweaking, there's a lot of fusillade added to PHR ships. And I brought an Agamemnon and a Leonidas. And after I dropped them a few times and put them back together, I was actually able to play with them. And I gotta say, those felt nice. When I played Don, I was able to drive them right up the middle of the board and weapons free with. And at one point, Don looked at me. He's like, "How the hell many dice are you rolling?" Because I shot his New York with 11 medium shots from my Leonidas, and then the 16 light shots from my Leonidas, and then I did it again with the Agamemnon into the side of the New York, and I just about shredded that ship with one volley, and I shredded 2 other ships with the other broadside. Felt really nice. It really made those ships feel like the gunboats they look like they're supposed to be.
Yeah, it hurt for sure, and that was against a battleship too. So using 2 ships against 1 battleship, I think that you should do pretty well. So
and two battle cruisers. I mean,
right, 2 battle cruisers. I mean,
Yeah, you almost spend 380 points or something like that.
It was almost 400
to try to take
points.
it down.
Yeah, they're $1.95 a piece. So.
And you have to weather some fire at least coming up the board to be able to do what you did.
Mm-hmm.
Unless your opponent max thrusts their battleship up the board.
Well,
in the face of that.
He was focusing on my Ganymedes because that was a raise mission.
Yeah.
So his attention was drawn to them to make sure that I would stop scoring points on them. So my battle cruisers and my battleship were able to get mid board almost unmolested.
Yeah, I was trying to focus on both destroying his bombardment ships, but also making sure I had enough ships by the critical occasions to score them.
Yep.
So yeah, when those battle cruisers let loose, they got followed by the Heracles, and it weapons freed and took out another 3 ships. It finished off the battleship and dark matter cannon one of the Osakas, and then gunned down and hornet droned one of the Rios, and it was a very messy. It was like turn 4, I think. But yeah, that was fun. That felt good.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
And even the third game, when I raced those battle cruisers, I had my 2 battle cruisers in the back of the Shautari board at the end of turn 2. I max thrust them 2 turns in a row, right through the planetary debris field, and just went straight to his backboard and was behind his diamond. And I stopped his entire fleet. Like they had to stop and turn and shoot me. So his entire fleet never got much past the quarter point of the board. But even then, I couldn't weapons free them, but they were still effective in dulling out enough firepower and taking enough shots to cripple his battle cruiser and his emerald and slow him down. So, yeah, those felt like they were in a really good place. Patrik and Don, you both got to face Rasmus's list, and he brought the 11 Andromeda.
Oh my god!
Do you guys want to talk about that?
It was horrible. It was like swatting gnats in the summer.
Well, Andromeda gained D3+1 Wasp drones, so it's close action, but 2 to 4 shots at 3+ lock, and yeah, so 11 launch off of those. And PHR launch isn't anything to sneeze at. So how'd that go, Don?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was a good scenario for him. We had the Traffic James, which has an LSO in there. So it was hard. I had to split up my ships, and I couldn't focus them in as many places as I would have liked. So that didn't help me out at all. And then, every launch phase just was a dread.
Patrick, what was your experience with it?
So I quickly realized that the Andromedas couldn't help him with the mission. So I played him in mission 3, top table, and in that mission you have a planetary ring. Then you should be launching troops onto your own clusters, and you should be trying to take out the clusters on the opposing side.
That's an opinion. Launching troops on your own cluster is an opinion.
Not validated, right? And I quickly realized that he could not use those ships to really influence how this would end, because the Charybdis would be able to drop down into atmosphere where his Andromeda can touch them, and they could stay over his clusters in his side of the board and just take out sectors and gain me points. While I could drop onto my home clusters early in the game, so he couldn't stop me from doing that. So they are a powerful force, but they have a hard time contributing to the point scoring portion of the game.
Very situational. Like in my mission, it was all space stations, so I couldn't hide in atmosphere at all.
Yeah.
But at 45 points now, you're looking at 90 points for a pair, which, if my memory serves, is considerably less than an Icarus. It's a good way to get launched for the PHR on the board.
Yes.
Do we think we're going to see Andromeda becoming a standard in PHR meta?
Rasmus is shaking up the game.
Yeah, I think it's a viable tactic to do it, but you're taking up a lot of light slots to do it, and PHR does have a couple of really good light ships. He was suffering from not having any Jasons or Echoes that could remove me from atmosphere.
God knows I love the Echo.
Yeah, and so I think that, of course, they are powerful when you use them, but they are competing for the slots of other ships. So perhaps not as much the Icarus as they are competing with other light ships.
Yes, the Icarus is pointed at 115.
Yeah. So, but I like to see them, and I think that the list that he brought was quite fun to play with because of its difference. But he relied a lot on the Remus pulling its weight for him to score points.
Can we also point out that he had all of those ships before the errata?
Yeah. That's
Right.
even without the errata, I would have thought him bringing those ships and be happy about it. Now he has the gleeful child playing with his favorite toys.
Yeah, I was going to say, Rasmus has never shied away from just doing what seems weird.
Yeah.
Fun for him.
Yeah.
I remember his drop zone list at the GT was eight Phobos, was it?
Yeah.
Something absurd.
Yeah, and a bunch of Nords and a Tiamat. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And at Origins, when he came with six?
4 mentions? 6 mentions?
6 mentions in a Poseidon.
And that was still version 1. That wasn't even before
Yeah.
Flame became really effective. He's like, yeah, I just brought a bunch of mentions.
Yeah.
All right, man. And they were effective.
Yeah, they roasted Pungari like no other business.
Popcorn Pungari.
No, so I think it's in no way something that is too powerful, but something that makes a different list, and if you think outside the box, you can make it work.
Mm-hmm. Well, the only thing we haven't really hit on is Shaltari. None of us there played Shaltari. We had 2 people show up with Shaltari fleets. That was Sean and Jay. And I got to play them both. And I hate playing Shaltari. And Sean didn't know what a disintegrator bank was. So every ship in his fleet was either Mauler or Particle. And Jay brought a lot of Particle too. We've seen a lot of change to the Particle weapons with this errata. Patrik, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so what we've seen is that the ceiling for particle weapons has been too low. In a world where you try to take out other ships, they just didn't do it. So what we suggested is that you add fusillade to these front narrow weapons which gives them the firepower to bring down other cruiser-sized or even battleship-sized ships when they can go weapons-free. But the thought process behind this is that you have to go weapons-free, and you have to do it on a front narrow weapon, which means that a smart player should be able to use movement and activation tactics to try to minimize the amount of weapons-free you will be able to do. So that's the thought process behind it. Then if it's reality or not, I know that people complained a little bit about the obsidian in the first version made, so we have changed it a little bit to the next version.
Yeah, quite honestly, obsidian is the only one. I mean, I saw a couple of granites. I saw a pair of battleship diamonds. The obsidian is the only one that it went weapons free, and I was like, whoa, what? Wait a second. But yeah, it was tough.
Yeah. Yeah, so just talking about a little bit about the specifics for those that don't have the rules in front of them. By adding +1 fusillade 1 to each of the particle lances, which each are damaged 2, the obsidian would then have 6 attacks damage 2 with particle hitting on 3+, with a potential 12 damage without armor saves, with some lucky rolling. So that might have been a little bit over the top.
Yeah.
So our next suggestion, yeah, but still, you need to make sure that you roll on with a full weapons free in a front narrow arc. So probably.
See, you keep saying that, but it's on a ship with a 12-inch scan, and if you're shooting at a 8-inch sig, you're almost halfway across the board. And front narrow is really wide at 20 inches.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying don't put fusillade on the particle, but yeah. Obsidian dial that back a smidge.
Yeah, it's still a 3+ lock, so it's not that it's 2+ where you hit with everything automatically. But our suggestion
only
would be
if your dice do you hit automatically on a 2+.
Not in my first game. But I think that taking down the fusillade from one of the particle lancets, so its ceiling stops at 10 damage, probably brings it down, and then giving it +10 points to make it on par with the Onyx points-wise, probably tunes it to a place where you think it's best.
I think I agree with that.
I foresee that a smart player that can use the particle and set up his double turns and think ahead should be able to profit from it, while a player that doesn't want to really think through those things and wants to get a little bit more direct satisfaction can use the Onyx or the disintegrator banks to have a wider field of view or arc of fire.
Or just spam Mauler.
Yeah, it's always a possibility. But then you cry when you meet another Shaltari player.
You're right.
Well, we were talking in the pre-show that we didn't know if we'd be able to talk about all the errata without it being boring, but we've managed to talk about almost all of the errata.
I think just to say a last little thing, I know that one big thing that we haven't touched upon is the air-to-air change.
Air-to-air and impel are the two things we really haven't touched on. And I'd say at this point, I don't think we've had a disinteresting conversation, so I'd say let's just jump on those. I missed this air-to-air change until I just read it when we were sitting here, and it would have been useful at the tournament. So if I go back to the Swedish recipe to win at Drop Fleet, it starts with read, which apparently is the first step that I missed on everything.
And you're an English major.
Right? I did enough reading in my college days. I don't want to read anymore. So the change with air-to-air. Oh, station keeping too. Order inside debris triggers debris hit at the beginning of the activation, even if actual thrust is 0. That's not a sexy rule though. Where was this air-to-air change? There it is. Weapons with air-to-air special rule receive an additional -1 to lock value when shooting from atmosphere to atmosphere. So if you actually take your Echo down and chase after some strike carriers, that 3 lock becomes a 2 lock. Or that 4 lock becomes a 3 lock. I'm sorry.
What Echoes are you playing?
Right. I'm playing my Echoes. So that is
With a
a big
capital
rule change.
E.
If I'm not mistaken, too, aren't glass like a ton of shots on 5 in Atmo, but
Now
They
they
go down
become
to
a
4?
ton of shots on 4s in Atmo
Yeah.
instead.
and it doesn't sound like a big deal, but that's a big deal. That's going to make them really threatening to stuff in Atmo now.
Yeah, but still keeping them totally crap at shooting at anything else.
Right. And then the Impel, I've never been much for Impel anyways. Do you want to go ahead so who wants to take Impel?
Yeah, Patrick, you're doing a pretty good job.
So the Impel changes, so everyone knows Impel was not used at all before. So something drastic had to be made. So 2 changes we did to the Impel rule is, first of all, we lowered the Impel value on all ships to 1, so that you actually have a possibility to come through and actually get the effect. Also, a minor change that I don't really count is that you change so that it's you can group the shots, so you can have the whole group fire on one target and then reach their Impel values together. But looking at the actual effects also, we did 2 things. First of all, you can now turn a ship 90 degrees if you manage to score your Impel value, but you can only do it once. So one ship can turn one other ship 90 degree. But if you have 2 Impel results, you can't turn it 180 degrees. It stops at 90 degrees. A second thing is that you can, instead of turning a ship, you can move it instead 1 inch directly away from one of the ships in the firing group, the attacker choice, which means that a smart player can use this Impel to great benefit to push things out of scoring distance or drop distance if he sets it up correctly. Or even if he managed to find a player being a little bit not too careful about where he places his ships, pushed it into a large solid object or things like that.
Yeah,
of course,
lots of good shenanigans happening.
Yeah, so we have played with it, play testing. Didn't see any play during the tournament. I don't think any of the players felt comfortable with it. But I think that in the hands of a good player, it can be used to good effect to get things out of range, out of sight, and things like that.
Pushing a troop ship off of a station can be huge.
Yeah. So it is suddenly it forces the opponent to start calculating, saying, "Oh shit, I need to go up maybe 2 extra inches here because he will push me off the objective otherwise." Suddenly he might be in range for you to shoot with other guns. So it adds another tactical element where people need to start thinking about how to do this and take risks either way.
More shenanigans.
Yes. I expect people to yell shenanigans at Adepticon.
So it's going to be fun in small measures. Anybody looking to abuse it is going to be severely missing out somewhere else in the board. So.
Yeah, it's still quite a lot of points to put into something that's not killing things, which is always a problem when you play a game where it's about killing the other guy.
Yeah.
So let's swing it back around. Don mentioned Adepticon, and Josh, you were running the Fleet Tournament at Adepticon, as we've mentioned several times now. What big changes do you see coming to this tournament format of yours because of the experience you had with Cleveland Clash? Like, what changes can we expect to see to your pack come Adepticon?
There's going to be, I think the missions that are in the pack, unless I hear from other people that they really didn't like it, will probably be what's run at Adepticon. A couple of these stations are going to be pushed just a little bit further away on the second and third missions.
I think as a feedback here, I think that mission 2 needs to have the clusters separated a little bit from the center line.
Yes.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for mission 2, I think we could do something nicer. Maybe a planetary ring in the middle of it for the lower. It's the Remus that just messes up everything.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed Breakthrough, but it was just like this straight line across the middle of the table. If you can spread those out a little bit, that would probably be a little more interesting.
Right. Ooh, that would be extra interesting if you force your opponent to go on the opposite side of the table and put a ring through the low orbit, because then that's going to reduce their bombarding range on the far side.
I do think
it's something I've thought.
Yeah, with Erupting Battlefront 2, those stations need to get pushed back towards their player edge just a few inches, because if you conveniently place yourself right in the middle of that center cluster, you can actually dedicate that tonnage to all 3 locations at once.
I agree.
So I actually didn't mind that. I thought it was a good scrap in the middle.
No one cares what you like.
Yeah, I know that much.
But
I didn't hate it. I parked a Heracles right in the middle of it and claimed 3 of those for a bit. But I also think it's kind of a cheap way to do it.
Yeah. But I must say, I really love the third missions. Yes, I played against Rasmus and he had a Remus, so he was coming towards me, going through to try to bombard my side of the board, which meant that he had to push up with his Dreadnought, and we had a glorious shootout between the Dreadnought versus my Battleship and the Basilisk and the Hydra and 4G.
Yeah, the third mission, Erupting Battlefronts version 2 there, it's a really solid mission. I really like that. And that's actually just almost straight out of the rule book. So
yeah.
Well, I was concerned going into it too that I wouldn't, without bringing a Remus, I wouldn't have bombardment worth a damn. But I brought 2 Ganymede and 4 Medeas, and I was surprised at the quantity of work they could do. And I don't know, UCM players.
It was a pain in the ass dealing with them. That I know it was a hard time because I really had to. There were so many scoring opportunities in there that I couldn't get after all of them, so I had to give up a few areas. So sending my Corvettes after your frigates was about the only choice I had.
Yeah, but you did pull my Echoes away from dealing with your New Orleans in that case. So, yeah. Did you find that the Madrids were able to keep up and do any decent raising?
Jordan, I only brought 1, so you're.
I only brought 2. So I actually liked bringing Madrids before. I never did it in a tournament, but like in a normal game with ground assets, much like flame weapons or demo weapons in drop zone, they can weigh out and be very worth their points. They can counteract, a fair amount of drop, just one bombardment ship, like in a microcosm. I didn't feel like I kept up. Like I thought I spent enough list point wise on bombardment. I didn't want to dedicate any more than I did. But I also felt like I didn't have nearly enough versus everyone else. So that's kind of a bigger issue. UCM has to have a battleship or a fairly expensive cruiser. There's not a frigate option for them.
Well, a little bird tells me there might be a change in the future for a particular ship. So,
are you on Twitter? Who's tweeting you?
Have any UCM players looked at the stat line for a Tokyo in recent days? Because
it's very devastating, but
10
in the mission,
2 up linked bombardment shots isn't so bad.
No, but like in Josh's mission where you had to get to the other side of the table to bombard, like that thing is slow as nails. I mean,
thrust 6 with a scan 8, though. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, you got to get it all the way over there and endure.
You can max thrust.
Yeah, you almost need to max thrust 2 turns to get there.
Hey,
Right.
get shot at a lot of stuff. So.
Right.
Yeah, but still, if
No, the key
yeah.
is that your battle cruisers have to be in the backboard turn 2 and everything's fine.
Right. Yeah.
I think that the big thing that you need to realize with a ship like that is that if you want to have it on the other side of the board, you need to use the debris fields to a good effect to make sure that you don't get the full firepower of the other fleet.
Yep.
So, did the UCM light torpedoes, could they still nuke sectors?
No, they cannot.
Have to have medium tonnage to nuke.
Right. Oh, and speaking
So wait a
of
minute,
nuke,
Don, you were saying a little bird told you what? I got distracted by looking at stats.
the UCM might have a new
Bombardment
bombardment option coming along. Not frigate. I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say the class of ship, but they might have another option coming along.
Is it like a CRT?
Crap? No, it's not crap.
No, a monitor.
I'm not going to say anything.
Your silence speaks volumes, Roach.
I already gave it. I already gave the information I was going to give. So
I think that if you look at it today, what the problem has been with the Madrid is still valid, and that is that it needs to be in low orbit or higher, and it's not survivable enough to withstand firepower. So you need to be really smart with it to get it used.
That's a tough ship because it's very good at what it does if it can survive and get there.
Yeah.
So you can't, you can't lower the points really anymore because it's almost like the guns are too good for the chassis, I would say.
Yeah. So you can just ask Jordan how long his Madrid survived against me.
Well, that was
about as
another
long
thing
as the rest of his fleet.
that's another thing that made him feel very not effective at all is my Madrids. because bombardment was the name of the game the entire tournament. I think they got shot at and destroyed quicker than my dreadnought.
Because your dreadnought is a dreadnought, it withstands the fire of half my fleet.
Right.
I had to sacrifice my battleship to ram it to oblivion.
Right.
The key, Jordan, was to get your dreadnought in a position to crash on the sector so that you could get the raise points.
That is a valid strategy.
What do you mean that you voluntarily fail your orbital decay roll?
I should have
guys,
tried for that after I had no other way to destroy any other than by that point Patrik had destroyed every single sector in range of anything. So
Yeah.
Well, guys, we've come up on the 1 hour mark. It's usually when we try to close things up a bit. I'm just going to run down the list of upcoming events since we've had the Cleveland Clash. It's already been a nice start to our tournament season. Is it next week? Don, you and Jordan are out at LVO?
Yep, heading out next week, Thursday, actually.
And Jeff's running both events out there?
Yep.
Do we know how his turnout's looking yet?
Jeff Doty. Turnout is pretty light. We're sitting at 4 for zone and 5 for fleet.
Well,
it's typically been a lower. I mean, that's lower than usual, but it's typically been a lower turnout. It's an expensive tournament to get to. I mean, it's Vegas, and so on hand for that.
Go ahead. I was asking if he was going to be using any of the errata. Is it a version 2 zone tournament?
We've been kind of discussing I've been giving him choices of what he wants to use. I mean, we're so close to the tournament. I mean, it's really up to him what he wants to include or not.
Sure.
Sure, he gets a choice.
Hey, you asked me. So I sent him the information. What he decides on is a final choice or whatever is going to be totally up to him since he's the TO for it. I think he did include all of the Michigan GT missions for Drop Fleet though.
Cool.
In the player pack, so those will get a second run through. So that'll be good. Some new feedback on them, and then of course me and Jordan will be there on hand at the booth, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's Friday, Saturday, and then until 5 p.m. on Sunday. doing Carnivale and Rumble Slam demos. We'll have Fleet, Rumble Slam, Carnivale, and a boatload of MDF and resin terrain there available at the booth for anybody looking to pick up anything there, especially since it's shipping is dreadful to get over here, especially with MDF stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So you get a chance to pick up some of those things, and then I might be persuaded to talk a little bit more about some up and coming things if you're going to be available at the show. Come talk to me. And Jordan?
No, I'm not. I'm not going to be available.
Well, then you don't get
You're
to
not
do
going to be at
nothing.
the show either.
Maybe I'll call you guys. Maybe you'll want to cast from at location. So after LVO, early March 1st, and 2nd, and 3rd, I believe, is CincyCon. And if anyone on this cast wants to go, Jordan's hosting us.
Yeah, we'll be staying at Jordan's house the night before.
So
Right.
Patrick, Josh, I just invited you to go crash at Jordan's house if you want to.
Okay.
That's nice.
There's plenty of space here.
CincyCon was a good time last year. There's only 4 people at the tournament, but it's a nice little con. Few hundred people, but it was a good time to get together and just play a little bit. Is John running that again this year, John Lay?
Yeah.
Okay. I checked the CincyCon site, but I didn't see the event posted yet. I don't
Okay.
know if he just hasn't registered yet or not.
Did Aaron ever decide if he wanted to run Fleet?
I looked at the
think,
website and I think I only saw Zone listed on it.
So he
Okay.
had
Well,
Aaron could not run anything. I think he had some work conflicts.
okay.
And then I think
If only we knew someone
Um,
living in the Cincinnati area who could run something.
right. John had
only.
talked about doing a narrative game on Friday too. I don't know if he posted that, kind of like a combined Zone Fleet thing.
We talked about it, but I don't know that he was actually.
I don't know if he's
100%. Yeah, I don't know if he's 100% on there or not.
I got to work Friday, so I wouldn't be making that unless Don was going to it, and I was going to miss my ride if I didn't go. So
Well, I think that might have since Zone was already on Saturday. I know Fleet would have had to kind of been Sunday then, because Friday wouldn't have worked for that convention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know what time they wrap up on Sunday. It's a long tournament, so.
And I
Yeah,
think Saturday was Aaron's day, and with Zone already there, I don't think he wanted to try and overtake one with the other. So
No, for sure. Okay. Is Aaron going to play Drop Zone, did you say, or is he?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think maybe I
Well-
knew once and forgot.
couple weeks after CincyCon, you guys will be back out in Cleveland at Adepticon. Josh will be running.
Cleveland, huh?
Chicago.
Or I'm sorry, Chicago. Thanks, guys.
Schaumburg, to be
It's late.
specific.
So, anyways, Josh is running Fleet at Adepticon. Jordan's running Zone. Thankfully, Josh is going to start promoting Jordan's tournament, so people will know it's going to happen.
Hey, you know what? We've got 7 spots open for Fleet, and I believe 10 open for
10.
Zone last I looked.
Yep.
Good numbers so far, though. What is it? 15 for Zone and 17 for Fleet right now?
Yep.
Mhm.
And so this would be a good opportunity to play some new errata and new missions for Fleet, and B, it's going to be a full V2 drop zone tournament with new missions, and we'll have all the information available with the new unit changes and all that stuff prior to it. Whether or not it's an official errata or still experimental at that point, I can't say, but it'll be pretty much exactly what we're looking at as far as changes go with V2.
All right. Then after Adepticon, Don, you've got the Rust Belt Rumble or something like that.
Yeah, so it's just that's Infinity stuff.
Yeah.
Over in Cleveland area. Josh, you gonna try and make it to that one?
I don't know. It's the week after Origins.
It is, but you said you're not going to Origins.
Oh,
so.
week afterwards. Oh, yeah. Yeah, someone's bailing on Origins. I forgot about that.
I might be able to. I mean, I could be around. Hey, if
It's
they
in
got
Fifth.
space, maybe I'll do something up there.
Patrick, are you bailing on Origins?
Not planned. I need to figure out where to live and things like that. But right now, as it stands, I plan on going. My wife
At least
might
someone's
have
reliable,
to.
Josh.
So my wife will have to make the final decision, since we'll be creeping up on the month mark of us having a new family member. So
Yeah, there's a lot of that going
Congratulations.
around.
yeah.
I think Columbus Patrick's wife is due around then, isn't she? Or is she due around Adepticon?
Adepticon.
All
Yeah,
the Patricks I know are making babies.
Yeah, it's the year of the Patrick. Patricks are breeding.
Yeah. It's that time of year.
It's like the locust every 10 years. All the Patricks breed.
All right. Well, Origins, that's June. The events are already submitted. I'm going to start pimping those sooner than later. Then after that is Gen Con, and then the season's over.
Well,
wait, no.
there's-
Well,
No,
yeah,
it's
GT in October.
No, it's not.
Isn't there something big happening?
Well, we're trying to make TTCon work at the Michigan GT October. Still waiting to finalize that information, so it's not a guarantee yet. But that's sort of the plan. And then PAX Unplugged over in November, December timeframe, depending on when they want to make it this year. And we are trying to get into Nova Open as well. They think I said in the last episode they sold out on site, so that's a waiting list type thing.
All right. Well, Patrick, any final thoughts?
I think it's an exciting time to play both Fleet and Zone. There are a lot of changes coming up that will shake up lists, and with Zone 2.0 coming up quickly here, I think there will be a lot of good games in the future.
Agreed. Josh, how about you? Anything you want to throw in at the end here?
Really looking forward to losing all my games at Adepticon and Jordan's Drop Zone tournament.
But you have found the secret secret English hard language. You found the secret sauce. You just bring enough vampires to overwhelm the opponent, right?
I really enjoy vampires.
Jordan, anything on your mind you want to throw in at the end here?
Just how frustrating it is to play Patrik sometimes.
Oh.
Don, you got anything else?
No, we'll be. I think me and Patrick will be having a conversation with Dave sometime this week, hopefully, and then to talk on the hard-hitting questions of Overlord Shivak's body shaming of Scourge.
That is the number one priority that needs to be talked about.
It is high priority. The Destroyer Badunks is an issue. No, serious note though. I think that we've done really, really well, and I'm very happy with everybody's input and everything like that. And we thank the community for their interaction with both myself and Patrick, as far as, it's important to find the fine line between what Dave wants and what the community wants and make that happen, So I appreciate everybody's work.
Remus, can we talk Remus?
Yeah, the Remus is still broken. Thanks, Dave.
Well, my final thought, as always, please subscribe, review on whatever media you're listening to us on, and share to help get the word out, increase our sphere of influence. Until next time, guys, thanks. And all of you guys, I do appreciate you taking the time out to rush in and get this podcast recorded quickly and back out to the community. So,
why's it got to be a sphere of influence?
Because, Jordan, the white sphere is the one true way, and if your dumb tunnel rat ass would pay attention, you should be enlightened too. It's also a sphere of influence, because I'm pretty sure that's what they call it in the book.
Right.
All right, thanks,
All right.
guys.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
See ya.
Have a good one.